Welcome to The Awakened Life. I'm Phoenix Moranitz, founder of the Awakened Woman Convergence and social entrepreneur. With each episode, we sit down with leading experts in spiritual growth, creative expression, innovative entrepreneurship, and empowered sexuality so that you can live your most awakened life. Eden Amadora is a spirit and embodiment coach, as well as a voice coach, sound healer, singer, and devotional prayer performance artist. She finds great joy in empowering others to embody and express their most essential, radiant selves and discover their authentic voices. As an ordained priestess of the 13 Moon Mystery School, Eden provides archetypal guidance, working with individuals and focalizing circles with guided meditation, chanting, devotional singing, and embodiment practices of the sacred feminine. She is a graduate of SMI and the Institute of Indigenous Arts and teaches sound movement integration, combining her love of sound healing and somatic mindfulness practices in private sessions, as well as her retreats and day-long workshops. Eden, it is such a deep pleasure and honor to have you with us here today. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us your wisdom.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Phoenix.
So you might not know, but I've been following your work for quite a while now, and you really embody everything that you share into the world. You know, this embodiment of compassion and beauty and love and the primal and truth through your work as an ordained priestess of the 13 Moon Mystery School. And I would love to hear more about how you came into this work, you know, the story behind how you stepped into your role as a priestess in this world today.
Okay. So it was an unexpected adventure for sure. I was a bit of a rock and roller. I've always been a seeker, little mystic, yogini sort since I was very young. Though I had no real connection to the divine feminine. It was very conceptual to me. I thought, oh yeah, in yoga they talk about some goddesses, but the divine for me was kind of abstract and conceptual. And I had other tools, maybe yoga and nature, where I felt connected, but never a really like sweet communion with mother, with the goddess. Until it's going on almost a decade ago now, I was in full rocker mode at my CD release concert at the time when I was approached by a couple after the show, and the woman said, "Wow, your lyrics are so resonant. They just speak to me. Are you familiar at all with the divine feminine or priestess work?" And I said, no, I hadn't really even heard at that time much about priestess as a phenomenon. I thought, well, that's an ancient sort of something that I just don't think exists anymore. And very shortly after, I ran into that same woman again at some random social happening and deepened with her. And she invited me to come sit with her and her co-facilitator, who happened to be Elaine Kalila Dowdy. And something happened as I sat in what I now know to be called empty presence with Kalila. I call her Kalila, where I dropped into a deeper kind of state of being where I was flooded with remembrance. And I had never had anything like this happen. This was the first time I met this woman. We were sitting in open-eyed, eye-gazing meditation together, and suddenly I'm having memories, not of this life. I'm having memories of being kicked out of the temple. I'm having memories of beautiful, loving interactions with lots of sisters, of times together in harmony and beauty with priestess sisters. And I'm crying. And she's responding to me and resonating in a way where her presence was so unconditionally loving and so different than anything I'd experienced with other women in my life, that I recognized, okay, I don't even really know what this work is. I need to take a leap here. And I found myself in the 13 Moon Mystery School as an initiate for a 13 moon long journey into this powerful ceremonial ritual, portal opening experience. And I still kind of thought I can keep one foot out in my like music life, rock and roll world or something. And, you know, little did I know, it's like the archetypes and the goddesses had plans for me. By the end of my first 13 moon circle, I dedicated a whole album to each of their different frequencies, their different voices. And so I began priestessing through the music first. So that album is called Dream Awake. And there's a follow-up to that called Trust, which really it has been a path of trust. At one point I had to tattoo it on my arm, like just the mystery. And it was fascinating to me because when I engaged in that intention to create an album to kind of represent, it was almost like singing from the voices of the different goddesses. I thought it would be kind of a slow, soft yoga album. Little did I know that each of the archetypes had such a distinct plan that when I opened up to the frequency, it went from perhaps the first great mother song being almost shamanic and very deep to the goddess of compassion. Who knew it was like this anthem of trumpet angels heralding, like really big drums, like come on, people, wake up. Are you going to be love? Are you going to see love? Are you going to bring your love here now? That was the message of the goddess of compassion through me at that time. And then, of course, Kali Ma wanted to like a dubstep, like totally different, like, I destroy what no longer serves you. You know, like just intense, rocking, edgy song. And I just surrendered. So my priestessing path kind of became this hybrid with the music as a musical channel, as a transmitter. And then little by little, I decided to dive back in a few years later as an apprentice to this work with Kalila, where I was shown the insides and how to support others and stepping out of my own personal. You don't get a free pass because you're in the archetypal energy and it's working you even if you're in service to others. And in fact, the more I've stepped into leadership and service in this work, the more alignment I'm required to come into, and the more those particular shadows and light qualities are amplified. So it's not that it doesn't feel uncomfortable anymore. It's just I've become more masterful at navigating the shadow work and the discomfort in service to the bigger kind of collective amplification of the light of those archetypal frequencies. So here I am now on my second full circle on my own, facilitating for other women. And as I sit in circle, whether it's on retreats or in my year-long program, I'm constantly reminded why I'm doing this work. When I see the women, it's like blossoming, like lotuses blossoming from the mud and the beauty. And it's not just like subtle, like, oh, she's changing. It's like quantum leaps happen in this work. It bypasses like years of talk therapy and mental body processing. It goes on a deeper alchemical vibration level where people just change. Their voices change, their posture changes, their stories they tell about themselves and the world start to change. And you see the transformation really clearly. And I know both Kalila and I are like, we're hooked. This is why we're doing this forever, because it's so beautiful.
Yeah. And so the archetypal work is really kind of a foundation of the 13 moon work. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And why is this so important? So for those that are maybe not as familiar with work around archetypes, I mean, Joseph Campbell, really kind of came out with a whole body of work around, a lot more around the hero archetype and around, the role of the archetype in our lives. But why is this work really so important now, especially around these feminine archetypes?
That's a great question, Phoenix. It's a really important question. As women in general, we've been robbed of really powerful symbols of feminine beauty and power forever.
Yes. Okay. I'm freaking out because I'm thinking of like all the girls that grow up with stories around really helpless princesses
Exactly.
And we grow up with that as being our key archetype. Oh my, I just totally got why. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. I'm sure our listeners can resonate with that too. It's like, duh, yeah, it's time for girls and women, whatever ages. I mean, there's women in their 60s that are coming into this work because they have been trying to be the man, and they're making money in their corporate job, and their bodies are breaking down. They've lost their sensuality. They've lost their intuition. They've lost their creativity. They've lost their feeling of being a woman, and even having access to their wisdom, their womb wisdom. So why are these archetypes so important right now? Because these archetypes live through us anyway. These archetypes are here in our collective consciousness. And what we're doing is we're amplifying and we're focusing intentionally to embody their energy more. And as we tune into those frequencies, they're very rarefied frequencies. Like we can just take one right now, for instance, like the goddess of compassion. There's different cultures, cross-culturally and throughout time, you can use a symbol like Mother Mary or Kuan Yin or Tara, white Tara, green Tara, any of the Taras. And you can embody that frequency through ritual, through song, through very specific practices, embodiment practices, mudra, mantra, through sacred geometry, through specific crystals, herbs, scents, flowers, and then of course, ritual art. You're creating a rarefied field for your psyche to be permeated by the archetypal frequency. And little by little, you start to develop a direct communion with the archetypal energy, and it begins to live through you. Mm-hmm. So we're literally beginning to embody the goddess consciously. And that's what the goddess is. The goddess is here. It's everything. She's the immanence of everything made manifest, right? That's Shakti, that's she, that's life force energy. And when you tune into specific archetypal frequencies, you can amplify that in your own life, in your own being, and really harness that much more, I would call it like a rarefied, subtle energy to clear out. You know, a lot of us are in quiet desperation, struggling to survive. Even if we might have our financial lives together, there's this kind of sense of meaninglessness or stress when you're coming from just your egoic lens. So working with archetypes is about, how do we step into our greater mythic story? How do we step into our soulful essence, our remembrance of who we truly are here as embodiments of the divine, not just these bodies and these egos and their little agenda, but the bigger story we've come here to write. Because the planet, it's time. It's like, the stakes are really high, as we can see. So for women, especially, just to wrap up this particular one, it's kind of become obvious how women are awakening. Obviously, look what you're creating. We are being asked to awaken to the divine mother principle as emissaries of love, as embodiments of presence, because everyone will be impacted and needs that more than ever right now. And I think the Dalai Lama even said, Western woman is the one that we're being asked to really awaken and step up.
There is so much that was coming through as you were sharing that, because we are in this time of awakening, and a lot of times people are awakening, but they don't necessarily have the tools or the practices or how to channel and harness, the information that's coming through. What do men have right now, or what do you see as men's role in this process where, the divine feminine is really awakening, and now we're seeing a lot of conversations around the divine masculine? Do men have these masculine archetypes that they get to work with? What?
Sure do. Yeah, they have the hero or the warrior, and especially the warrior of light. And for me, I would take that even into the steward of Gaia and the green man, and like connecting back with how to be a warrior of gentle, a warrior of green. And we have the king. We have the archetype of the noble king. And there's deep mythology around like the Grail myth. How does the Grail king heal? It's right now more than ever in this this turning point, this crossroads with the dying of the patriarchy, when it's become, the shadow has become so exaggerated, where the sacred masculine is being asked and invited and activated more than ever to awaken. And that it's happening, and I see it. I see it in beloved friends, and there are men that are just like, they're meditating on that. They're asking, how can I be of service? I love Gaia. I love the goddess. I mean, it's beautiful to witness men I know as emissaries of the goddess as well. And it doesn't mean they're not also completely in devotion to the transcendent father energy. And it's about balance. It's about really honoring the two, and the merging, and what I'd love to talk a little bit later, maybe about the inner marriage, or where we come into that sacred masculine essence and divine feminine essence within each of us.
And that's actually interesting. So I was going to ask you about those that maybe don't quite resonate as being either, strictly in a binary of man or woman. They feel like maybe two-spirited. They don't feel like they're either. They feel like a hybrid of something. Can you talk around, share a little bit more about that?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I think when we talk about gender and gender identity, there's such a full spectrum, and I'm definitely not an expert in this, but I would say that part of the awakening and the awakening the heart, which is totally synonymous to me with the activation of the divine mother principle on the planet, it's the full embrace. It's that unconditional embrace, which says, wherever you are in whatever spectrum and however you feel or want to live is absolutely welcome and embraced. And the archetype of the androgyne is emerging. It's like, I actually have a lot of sacred masculine qualities, and I'm merged with the beloved within and feel that divine union inside of myself. And then I can choose, for myself, I tend to choose male lovers, but for whoever it is, whatever is true, love is not dependent on that. So, we're talking about a time that's emerging where there's just this embrace of all colors of the spectrum and all preferences and identities, that we're not rigid, we're not fixed, we're not polarized anymore. And that fluidity is our saving grace. In the feminine, the word that repeats the most in most of the transmissions that I give and receive in my work, the word fluidity is it's the sacred waters of consciousness, of gnosis, of remembrance. It's like, if we're not fluid, we're actually not tapping from the source. We're not in the depth. So, yeah.
And fluidity is something that you also embody, like the fluidity and passion through other modes of expression. So you make these incredible photograph, creative shoots where you're dressing up as these different archetypes, and there's layered images on top, and they're just so mythic. And then you have, of course, your music, that you have also woven into this. Would you say that working with the archetypes has really helped you to explore your creative expression with more confidence and fearlessness?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. And I feel like different initiations, I would call it gateway initiations that I've had to step through in my priestess path, they've both challenged me to really look at what's your greater why behind this? Do you just want to dress up and look cool, or what are you embodying?
Yeah.
And that creative inspiration, that juice, really comes from that channel being clear and the Shakti flowing, and that listening where I'm like, okay, if I put my focus on the muse or whichever archetype is coming through, how does she want to play through me? What's her message? And the muse message happened to be here, now, all things are possible. And the song that was born is delightful, because it's if anything's possible, then we get to make it up and we get to make it real. And then, okay, what's the image for that? Well, the muse can be anything, so I'm going to be a mermaid. Giving yourself full permission to play again with divine child innocence. and not take ourselves so seriously. And I was kind of joking because as you see behind me, I have the altar for the archetype of the priestess, which is the Lady of the Lake, Mistress of the Waters, the Magdalene, that sapphire blue frequency that can sometimes feel very cool and very serious. And the beauty of this work is that there's such a full spectrum of frequencies that you can go from the most like warm, loving embrace of the Great Mother to this crystalline kind of trumpet angels of the Goddess of Compassion at the crown, to the priestess activating the third eye, seeing through the veil, beyond the veil, into the mystery. And on until you get to the muse, where you're basically like jumping around dressed like a unicorn. Like there's no rules there. So yeah, as far as creative energy, the archetypes are just a storehouse of beauty and richness and depth, and they already live through us. It's just about giving ourselves full permission to really amplify those frequencies in our lives.
And so in the last, like, I guess 5 years, I've seen this huge explosion of priestess work, of trainings, of like just this transmission really coming through in the world in a big way. Like, it's now more widely talked about. I'm sure you've probably seen this huge transition over the last 10 years that you've been doing this work. You know, so would you say that now we're seeing like a huge wave of this work coming out into the world? And what is a simple practice that those who are thinking about diving more into priestess work, what is something that they can start to work with now to see if that's really for them?
Yes. Okay. A simple practice. Well, I would say to practice listening and practice quieting, because the simplest of the priestess practices I know is sitting in empty presence. And although it sounds simple, it actually takes a lot of practice to be able to really quiet. It's in the silence, in the stillness, that we're then able to listen to that deeper intuitive womb wisdom, and where symbols and guidance emerge. So if you're not meditating at all, I would say start there. Like, start to give yourself even 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes before bed. And I sit. I don't lie down and do a guided meditation. I really think the spine, the vertical axis, I think Paramahansa Yogananda said, the spine is the highway to the divine. It's like, let's use these vehicles. As we embody more of our full essence, you'll notice your body starts to change. So for someone who's beginning, I would say start with a seated practice where you really sit at least 5 minutes. I sit 20 minutes, sometimes twice a day, and go inward and just feel. And that ability to be with what is and come to your breath and quiet and be still enough to allow whatever emotional body static is happening to start to subside, or to those waves to kind of calm. That's the beginning, because we're living in such a field of static. We're living in Maya, illusion, out in the world. There's so much frequency that's not in that like clear vertical, you know, your priestess channel needs to get cleared first. We'll just say that. And start with that. And then I use sound. I find sound to be one of the quickest ways to still the mind, calm the emotions, quiet and calm the body. So a simple sound, the primordial sound of Om, the first sound of the mother, a very basic practice for those watching that haven't used sound and want to still the mind, quiet the emotions, calm the body. Start by visualizing that it's Aum, like starting from the Ah tone, coming down from the above, that the awe and wonder and the divine light is bathing you with the sound. So we bring the Ah, almost like AWE, but the Ah sound in through the crown, and let it bathe through your skull. Change to the O at the heart, like home, Om at the heart. And then as it goes deeper into the belly womb, go into the Oo, womb, touching down with your awareness all the way to your perineum, and then wrapping the back back to your third eye, and I'm going to bring in a little primal goddess with, let it be delicious, let it be sensual, let it feel good. Because when we invoke a ray of joy and gratitude and a pleasurable experience, letting your spine be fluid with sound, you're actually rewiring your whole system. So you want to do it once together and just show it?
Yeah.
You can do it with me. Okay. So breathing in deeply. And just feeling the resonance of the sound. So this is a great way to prepare by doing that 3 times at least before you sit in silence, just to prepare the body, prepare the channel, to use the vibratory energy of that primordial sound to kind of clear and ground and prepare you to sit. I would say that's a really simple practice that you can.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so beautiful. And this has been so illuminating, I think, for those that are listening that are really wanting to deepen into who they can be, who they are, to go beyond the singular story that they have about themselves, especially for those that really want to, go out there and explore themselves creatively. I would say definitely following this work. Where can people find out more about you and your work?
I have a website called awakening-beauty.net, Awakening Beauty. And you can find out about different things I offer there. You can work with me individually as an archetypal mentor through that site. You can contact me. And yeah.
Beautiful. Has your retreat happened yet?
No, the Fireflower Retreat is in May, the beginning of May. So that will be an incredible portal of communion between the primal goddess and the goddess of love. So Kalila and I hold these temples in the greater 13 moon community. And the goddess of love is that archetype that's asking us, what is still shielding your heart? And how can we move beyond comparing mine? I know many of us sisters, and myself included from the past, I would look out at other women, I would think, oh, she has such nice clothes, or she's so beautiful, or whatever. And then it would kind of like be a separation instead of a joy, like a shared joy when your sisters triumph, when someone's gorgeous. How do we reorient out of competition and comparison into really resting in our own essence, beauty, and enoughness? So a lot of the ritual and the temple time and the goddess of love on the Fireflower Retreat is about peeling layers back and really shedding, transmuting those collective shadows, and then emerging with this kind of sensual, appreciation for this essence being we are, and the beauty, our unique light. And then the primal goddess comes in to shake it up another notch, and she's like, where's your creativity? Where's your creative fire? What do you really want, sister? Where's your desire? And what's in the way? You have some shame stories. You're afraid to get too big. You're afraid to get too loud, too wild. What's going to happen? The primal goddess does not care what it looks like. And she doesn't care what you think about her, because she's so instinctual, so wild, and so free. And she's here to be a force of nature. And that's where all your Shakti and your life force comes back, and your creative juices come online.
Wild. And you do this every year, is that right? You do this?
Yeah, this will be the second one. And the plan is to keep going, because I think it's such a gift to women who find out about it and who are a resonant yes. It changes their lives. You can see that on fireflowerretreat.com, and we have some incredible testimonials from the women last year. And the wonderful thing is you're in paradise. We're down the road from thermal baths, where you're just in the ocean with the volcanic warm water mixing in. And it's like so nourishing, because in the feminine, there's also this need to rest and renew. in our culture, we're just so busy, go, go, go. And this retreat is a time to do deep soul work, but also nourish our bodies. And we have a chef on site that's it's like being on a cleanse without knowing it. And the food is so delicious and so beautiful. She's an Amma devotee that like everything's artistic and gorgeous. And then we go swim with dolphins just to top it off. If you can't get any more epic, it's like, okay, how do we raise the joy level in our lives to the ultimate?
That is so beautiful. Well, we'll put that in the notes too as well. And hopefully you can join, if not this year, then next year. And I can't wait to see you in person in Arizona at Awakened Woman. And just thank you, sister. I just so appreciate your work in the world. It's so needed. And
I'm honored to be here and looking forward to the Awakened Women too in Arizona.
Ah, beauty. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. And this year, Awakened Woman 2017 will be held in Sacred, Arizona, October the 12th to the 15th. Our theme of Awakening Shakti will address the evolution of love, sexuality, and spirituality, and is open to men and women this year. So you can apply for your invite at awconvergence.com.